where you go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Grove. It's good to see you here today and good to see those of you online later. Hey, we are glad you're here, and we would love for you to be able to stay connected with us. If you're new or newer and you don't know, we've got some things for you to help. So you've got lyrics for the songs, and so you've got other information about the church. We have paper handouts back at that sign there, back by the coffee station, of lyrics and worship folder. You can also go to thegrove.today on your phone's browser if you'd prefer to connect with those things digitally. But that helps us stay unified together today. So, since we're all here, I invite you to rise or stand as you're able, and we'll start by singing this first song, For Everyone Born. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. For young and for old, a place at the table. A voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of the child in hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For genders diverse, a place at the table. Revising the roles, deciding the share. With wisdom and grace, dividing the power. For genders diverse, a system that's fair. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For everyone born, a place at the table. To live without fear and simply to be. To work, to speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born, Amen. Thank you for singing with us this morning, and now you can actually have a seat.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Kids, good morning. Oh, my. There we go, all the way in the back. Good morning. It is so good to be with you here on this beautiful, albeit a little bit sticky, Sunday morning. My name is Jeremy. I am the pastor of the Grove Cottage Grove here, and we are a new church that exists to grow goodness. And so my hope is that you're being with us today out in the Grove, you're watching with us later online, you're somehow interacting with any of us out in the community during the week, even on social media, perhaps even during the week, is somehow nurturing healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life.
Hi, I'm Miranda. I'm one of the worship leaders here at the Grove. As you walked in, there's a bulletin board on the back wall that has a pamphlet and also the lyrics if you're looking for those tangible
We
pieces.
ran out of lyrics. We printed more.
They
so if you
are
want
there.
the printed lyrics, not the web page, we have more lyrics available back there.
Boom.
Sorry to interrupt.
So in the pamphlet, if you want to take a look on the inside, there's mine's missing it, but there's usually a sheet inside. Thank you. Nice, Vanna. That if you can fill out that, let us know that you're here. Things that you might be interested in within the Grove. If you want to help volunteer, show us the trades that you have that might help us out as well. That would be wonderful. In there as well, there are different ways to give to the Grove. So we have Venmo. There is a link within that same website there. Also, we do have a donation box within the building as well.
Again, all of the stuff that's in here, if you don't have the physical copy, you can find that same information, same ability to check in or let us know that you're here, submit prayer requests, give either Venmo or online. All of that is also available on that webpage, thegrove.today, along with the lyrics and everything. On the back, also on the webpage, we have our 3 announcements that we have been keying in on this month. Usually I bore you with the details at the end, but I want to end on a high note today. So I'm going to bore you with the details really quickly now, these 3 things. The first thing is next Sunday already is September. Wild. But next Sunday, September 1st, we have backpack blessing. So it is Labor Day weekend. In 2 days after that, the kids in South Washington County are going to be going back to school. And so we invite all of our students of any age to come up with their backpacks. We give them a little tag that they can fill out and attach to their backpacks, and then they get to show off their brand new backpacks for the school year, and we get to pray over them as the school year begins. So we would encourage you to be here if you have a student in your life, and then if you have a student in your extended life who you think could benefit or enjoy being a part of that, please invite them there as well. The second thing is about getting involved. If you consider the Cottage Grove to be your church home, we'd love to find a place for you to use your gifts and passions to contribute to the life of the church. This is especially important as we get into fall, we move back inside, we restart our Grove Kids programming, all of that in order to be able to continue to do what we do. So if you don't yet have a volunteer role but are interested in one, you can either scan that QR code. If you're on the webpage, you can click on the image, or talk to me afterwards, and we'll find a place that fits with your gifts and passions and our needs as a church, too. The last thing is the Pop-Up Pumpkin Patch. The Pop-Up Pumpkin Patch has been our biggest event year over year, and it has grown significantly year over year to the point where last October we had about 2,000 people here on our property for this community event, which is fantastic. And it means that it's probably going to be even bigger this year. And what that means is we need help to pull this off. So fortunately, we have some good community partners that we work with, but also it takes a lot of person power too. So if you are interested in helping to contribute to that event, maybe doing some prep work beforehand, showing up early to do some setup, being involved in the actual event itself, or helping with cleanup afterwards, all of those are options for you. And if you want to see what those options are, or if you're ready to sign up for one of those, you can either scan that QR code or click on the image on that webpage and sign up, and we will get you the information so that we can help get you to work for this event.
Kids here are super important to us here at the Grove. We will be starting our Grove Kids in about 2 weeks inside, but until then, they are on free range. So Nobody's watching them except for you guys. So
Except for you.
yeah. So we do have the playground over there. We do kind of have an invisible perimeter. So we would prefer them to stay on this side. Well, yeah, of like the picnic side or like this side. I feel like a flight attendant. Like, stay here. The emergency exits are here and here. But yeah, prefer not to go past the trees on this side, just so this way it doesn't interfere with any of the technical pieces there. There is a nursery inside that is non-staffed, but we do we have the live stream going
We do
on?
not have the live stream.
We do not? There is
We're
no
live
live.
streaming later.
The live stream will be
Long
later,
story
so
short.
no live streaming in there.
Not
We'll talk
technically live.
really loud. Um, but inside there is a nursery, so if you just need to get away, the kiddos need a little place to decompress, it is a great place to go for some of those young kiddos. Other than that,
That's it. All right, boring announcements are over.
Yeah.
Promise.
Woo.
Now we get to the exciting part, which is your opportunity. Yes, opportunity to connect with people around you. So every service we have what we call connection point, which is where you have the opportunity to connect with people around you. So in just a few moments, I will ask you to stand as you're able, find someone near you that you don't know or don't know very well, and then to lower the anxiety level just a tad, because let's be honest, that can be an anxiety-producing thing. We give you a discussion question. So if you have nothing else to talk about, you have no idea what to talk to this person about, you at least have this one thing besides your name. So today's question is around, we are not in fall yet. This is still summer, but fall is like right there. And there are some people like me that love fall and many things that come with fall. So the question for today is, what is something that you are willing to cheat on summer with? Here's what I mean. I am already on my third package of pumpkin spice Oreos. It doesn't matter if it's summer. I know you're supposed to wait for pumpkin stuff until the fall. Does not matter. When the pumpkin spice Oreos hit the shelves, I'm buying them. So maybe you are seeing that Starbucks has flipped their menu to the fall drinks. Maybe you, I don't know, what are other things that represent fall that you're like, you know what, even though it's August, I'm okay with doing that fall thing. If you have anything else to discuss, go ahead and discuss that thing if you don't like my question. So why don't you stand up as you're able, find someone near you don't know or don't know very well, discuss that question or something else, and we'll reconvene in a couple minutes.
Shaped like pumpkins? Oh, yeah. Like the my favorite thing is
whenever y'all are ready, you can come back and sing with us, God our Mother. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name in all the God our Father, giver of daily bread, blessing our hands and covering our head. God our Mother, leading us into peace, drawing and comforting all those in need. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name in all the Jesus, brother. Jesus, brother, guiding our every step, deliver us and grant places of rest. Jesus, Savior, grabbing us from the grave, cheating the fallen, breathing the light of day. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, hallowed be
Many of you know that the Grove is actually a multi-site church. What that means is that we have two different locations. We have our Woodbury location, which is 160 years old, something like that, previously known as Woodbury United Methodist. And now we have our Cottage Grove location. We are all of 2.5 years old. But there's a lot of there's a lot of shared things that happened between the two locations. We have some shared staff. We have shared mission, vision, values, and then different worship services, different experiences. But increasingly, we're trying to figure out where there are points of overlap where we can share things between these two locations as one church that is able to do ministry together. So one of the things that happened last month was there was a team of people from the Grove, primarily people from our Woodbury location, but one person from our Cottage Grove location that was a part of a mission trip to Detroit. So they got back, and the one person from Cottage Grove is Rachel Henson. We have Woodbury representatives here as well, wearing their nice blue mission trip shirts. But we got Rachel here, and so we thought it'd be great for Rachel to be able to share with us a little bit about her experience, their experience, things that she learned, things that she would like you to know, both about the trip and going forward. So, thank you, Rachel. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so this was not one of the scripted questions, but I just thought about it like 2
Okay.
minutes ago. You have a lot of past mission trip experience.
I do.
So why don't you first describe to everybody, like, what is your past mission trip experience?
Sure. So I started out, I grew up in the United Methodist Church. My dad was the minister, and so I went on multiple trips as a youth and a young adult growing up. And then when I got to Woodbury, the church, I went to a Christmas Eve service, and I wasn't really involved with the church I attended. And there was an ad in there to go to New Orleans on a mission trip, and I'm like, hey, New Orleans, that'd be pretty cool. So I signed up, and that was actually my connection into getting involved in the church. Since that time, I've probably led, 4 or 5 mission trips, and then was lucky enough to go on this last one to Detroit.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So some people might be familiar with mission trips and have a really positive experience of them and perspective on them. I also know some people have experience with mission trips and don't have as positive experience with them. And then I know other people are like, they've maybe heard the term, but they don't understand it. I went on a mission trip. I brought some students on a mission trip to Chicago. And while we were there, we were serving in one of these places. And this guy was talking about how he had a brother who did this trip with his church. And like, he didn't get paid to go there. He actually paid to go there and to like volunteer in this foreign country, and how crazy that was. So from your perspective, especially given your background, why mission trips? And then why specifically this one in Detroit?
Sure, definitely. So why mission trips? That's a good question. And the first one for me is always that it's an actual opportunity to be the hands and feet of Christ. Actually, like for an entire week, having an opportunity to live for someone other than yourself. The other thing was, it's always a good refresh for me on my faith. You know, life gets super crazy busy, and sometimes it's easy to just forget about God or put him aside until Sunday. But to actually focus on God and others for an entire week, it just kind of gives my faith a refresh and gets my head back to where it needs to be. The other cool thing is you get to really know your other church partners super well, as opposed to just being on a Sunday morning and saying hi. So I can say Rick and Sandy and Tom, we have a shared experience now with Detroit. I can say, I see Jason back there, we have a shared experience in Alabama. So you really get to know each other pretty well. And it's really fun to see what everybody has to contribute, because I can assure you that my construction skills are super limited. But everybody has something to contribute. It could be cooking. It could be a sense of humor. It could be finding good ice cream places.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
job for everybody. And then the last thing is, admittedly, it's just super fun. Like, you laugh continually. It's a great time. And in case you guys didn't know this, I'm here to share this message. Ice cream is calorie-free on mission trips, so I just want to let you know that. So, yeah.
How about Detroit specifically?
Yeah, so why Detroit specifically? Detroit is a really fascinating city. I think I've been there 3 times now. And boy, if you go to visit and you go downtown, it's like super fancy. Like, the buildings are all new. Everything's nice. There's lots of cool things to do. But man, once you get in the neighborhoods, it's like an entirely different experience. Entire neighborhoods are just vacant. There's no one living there, or they've torn down the houses and there's just nothing there. there's just blocks of like empty houses or just empty lots. In the recent past, our teams have actually gone to Detroit and we've boarded up vacant buildings to make them safe for the neighborhood. We've actually torn down garages. So it was very much just like protecting what was there, keeping people safe. But the cool part is in the last year, or the last number of years, things are slowly changing. We were working in a neighborhood that might have a $300,000 house that's been restored next to a vacant lot, next to a house that's like $26,000 that has people living in it, next to a house that's boarded up. So it's just a fascinating, you just drive through the neighborhoods and you're just like amazed at what you're seeing. And the cool part for us, I think the last time we were there was 6 or 7 years ago. And where we ate lunch every day across the street was a boarded up house, beautiful, like 2 or 3 stories, like Victorian, just amazing, totally boarded up and vacant. When we went back this last time, it's been restored and there were people living there. And we, one of our members actually went over there to show them a picture of what the house looked like. Huh. So there's actually change happening, but there's still a whole lot of work to do.
So what did you accomplish? What did you accomplish? So, like, what was the work like that you did there? And then also, was there other non-work that you think would be helpful to share of what you all did?
Sure, yeah. So when we went to Detroit, we worked with an organization called Motown Missions, which is based out of the Metropolitan United Methodist Church. So we actually spent the week sleeping and eating and showering at this church. And the Motown Mission partners with nonprofits in the city, and so they connect us up with the different projects. So most of our project happened with the North End neighborhood group. That was the neighborhood the church was in. And homeowners in that neighborhood, if they have any issues, they'll just go ahead and contact that organization, and we'll see if we can find some volunteers to help them out, see if we can raise some funds to get supplies to do that work. So we ended up rebuilding or repairing 3 sets of steps for people to access their house. This is things we don't think about, right? We don't have we have functioning steps and entrances to get into our houses. They didn't have them. So that was like a huge deal for the homeowners. We also redecked a porch that was falling through, so when they would walk on it to exit their house, the boards would actually break. So that was a huge deal for them. We cleared out an overgrown alley in the in the neighborhood, so clearly no skills were required for that. So like I said, everybody is welcome on these trips. One of our groups actually got to clean up around a church who was on the route for a memorial parade for a police officer that had been killed in the line of duty. And they actually got to see the practice ceremony the day before, so it was really meaningful. And then our last day, we cleaned up around an abandoned house. There were 20 of us. And they kept saying it would take all morning, and I'm like, what in the world could take all morning for 20 people? It took us 3 hours, and we filled over 60 bags of debris and vegetation, so that's how overgrown it was. But to be honest, we did a lot of that hands-on work, but the most important thing we did was build relationship with our the people that we worked with, both with the nonprofits that we worked with and the homeowners themselves. I know the project I worked on, the first day the homeowner was a little standoffish and she didn't want to have much to do with us. And by the second day, her grandkid was out playing with us. She had the speaker on the porch playing Motown tunes for us and was out there talking to us the whole time. I know another group went to one of the places that we worked at, and the lady was there. She was so excited about their new steps, so excited. She had a friend there, and the friend said, you guys need to hurry up and leave because she won't stop talking about you. And she just kept using the word unconditional love. So that was the part to show people that they're important. We traveled all this way to work with them. That was the important part. But to be totally honest, we didn't do we worked, but we might have done a few other things too to make it a vacation. So we have lots of fun on these mission trips. We laugh continually. We got to tour an art garden in the neighborhood, created with all sorts of junk people had in their yards. We got to visit a grocery store. Now, how exciting is that, a grocery store, you guys? This neighborhood had never had a grocery store. People were getting their food from gas stations. That was the quality of food they had. So we had the opportunity to visit a grocery store, and it was, like, amazing. I had a friend in town, and so we got to do a behind-the-scenes tour of the Fisher Theater, which was pretty amazing. Every evening, we'd get together after we were all cleaned up and eaten and playing games. Got a little competitive there with some Sky Joe, if you guys have played before. And then we actually got half a day off because the organizations want us to explore Detroit, to have a good experience. And so some of us went to a museum, some of us did a river walk. Of course, we had to try some Detroit-style pizza because that's what you do. And then they gave us tickets to the the Tigers game that night, who were playing the Twins, who came through and crushed them. So it was phenomenal. We were happy. And then again, for me, the most important part, I think we had or went to an ice cream shop every day. So it was pretty amazing. So it was like, don't think that you're just going to work the whole time and you're just sitting around praying in your free time. Like, no, we had an amazing, fun adventure out there. Calorie free. Yep.
Calorie free ice cream. That's right. If you are on that lyric page, there are like 5 pictures that Rachel shared. That if you want to see anything that she's describing, there are some photos there for you to check out if you want. Last question. This is not going to be the last trip that the Grove as a whole does.
Definitely.
And so for anyone who has either interest or maybe even is skeptical, what would you say to someone who is like somewhat curious or interested in missions?
Yeah. So I would say just give it a shot. Like, what's it going to hurt? Like, you're going to have a good time. But I would also suggest talking to anybody in the blue shirt or myself. We can share our experiences. I forgot to mention when Jeremy asked earlier, I've gone to mission trips to Africa. You guys, I was afraid to leave the U.S., and I went on a mission trip to Africa because I said yes. So I would say mission trips are open to everybody. I think it would be great if we could get one from the Cottage Grove. We can bring some kids with. It could be a weekend. There's all sorts of options, and it makes you feel so good. I always feel selfish on mission trips because you're going to help other people, but man, I'm getting more out of them than anybody else is. So I certainly encourage you, and I'm happy to talk about them anytime.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Let's give her a hand. And the whole team. I suppose that's not the whole team, but the extended team. Thanks so much. All right, we are going to do a pivot now. We are in our series, which we've done every summer and we've been in existence, all 3 of them, called Campfire Stories, where we retell old stories from the Bible as if they are stories that we would tell around a campfire. And one of the things that we've done every year in this series is we rewrite the story in such a way that it can be told to kids, and then we have someone come up and actually read this story to kids. And the benefit for the kids is they not only get a fun story, but they get a treat out of it. So today, because it's, hot and sticky, we have ices, Freezy Pops, whatever you call them. So in order to get those, though, kids, you have to come up and listen to the story. So we got Lily Flage reading our story for today. So Lily's going to come up, and then any kids who want to hear the story and get a Freezy Pop, why don't you come on up here?
Is it on? Woohoo! You can hear me. What's up? I miss y'all. I haven't been here in a while. How are we doing? Yeah? When Katie, you go get your baby. Yes, that's a good idea. Gotta have those babies. When Katie asked me to read the story on a female leader, I got pretty excited. I don't know if you notice your parents like watching TV or on social media in the last couple years, but we have some pretty amazing females in our generation right now. We got any Swifties out there? Taylor Swift, right? We got the Barbie movement, like all female here. Yes, yeah. Anyone watch the Olympics recently? Whoa, right? We could list all those amazing women that competed, right? And then we might have our first female president. I don't know about that. That kind of gives me like goosebumps. Like I'm feeling kind of excited about it. And one thing I've realized with all of those women is they bring everyone around them up, right? They hype each other up. And we have a school year coming up, and I want to give all of you a challenge. I want you to be your best hype girl. right? I'm going to say girl for right now, but I want everyone to know I'm being inclusive. Everyone is part of this. Like stand in the mirror, right? You tell yourself, I'm strong. I'm capable. I'm smart. I'm beautiful. I can do hard things. Yes? Yeah? And then I want you to do that to someone else. Do it to your best friend. Do it to your parents. I think they probably would like to hear that every once in a while, including your teachers, including maybe the mean kid on the playground. Yeah? Maybe feels kind of silly at first, but I guarantee you, little things like that will change your community. They're going to change the world. I love teaching all of you because I just feel the potential. Think you can do that? Yeah? Think we can grow goodness like Pastor Jeremy says, and we can be like strong female leads? Yeah, I like it. So we're going to learn about a female leader today named Deborah. Has anyone heard of Deborah? Maybe from previous Campfire Stories, maybe, or Godly Play? Does anyone remember Deborah? We're going to learn about her, okay? All right. Once upon a time, the people of Israel found themselves in a familiar situation. Having turned away from God, they were defeated by their enemies. This time by an evil king and wicked general, Sisera. Boo, right? For 20 years, Sisera made them feel like slaves. It almost felt like God had never freed them from Egypt. But along came a woman named Deborah. Yee-haw. Women weren't usually in positions of such power at that time, but Deborah had gifts and a calling that were so undeniable that people came from all over to hear from her. One day, Deborah decided to exercise those gifts the best way she knew how, going after the evil general. So she called up her sidekick Barak and told him the plan. They would take their soldiers, march right up to Sisera, and defeat him. But Barak did not like this idea. Because if we're being honest, he was a little scared. I'm only going if you come with me, he cried. Fine, said Deborah. But it's going to be the woman, not you, who gets to be the hero of this story. Oh, we got a spider. Everybody calm down. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. When he saw Deborah coming, now it was Sisera that was scared. Nice job, Isla. There you go. There you go. It's all gone. It's all gone. That's right. She got it. Way to go, girl. Way to be brave. Girl power. That's right. Girl power. All right. So Sisera was scared out of his mind. He ran for the hills and ended up getting caught by yet another woman. The evil king was eventually defeated, and with her sidekick Barak and her whole nation watching, God had used Deborah to win peace. There are a lot of things that we tell ourselves, right? Remember what we're going to tell ourselves in the mirror? Yeah? Or that people say about us. Maybe that we aren't good enough, that we can't do this, or because of the things that we can't change about ourselves. But God made you who you are with gifts and callings that fit like your favorite t-shirt. And no matter what people say or think, your gifts and callings can help you do great things. And if not great things, then small things with great love, just like Deborah. Yeah? What do we think? Yeah? Yeah? Woo! All right. I like it. Y'all sat wonderfully. Poseidon! All right. Okay. Let's do it. Freezies. That's what I was thinking, Roz. Freezy time. All right. We're going to go back over by where the ice bucket is, okay? Thanks for being awesome listeners. Don't forget your baby.
This is the first church service I've been a part of where we've had a cheer for Poseidon.
Yay!
Love it. Love our kids. So, as I already mentioned, and as you just experienced, we are in this series, which we've called Campfire Stories. This is our fourth week in our third year of doing this series. And the approach that we take is that we retell these stories of old. We go back to them and retell them in such a way as if we're like gathered around a campfire together. And we use some of our creative license to make them maybe more engaging. And actually, the reason we do this is because in some ways, this is almost like more reflective of how these stories were originally passed down and eventually written down than how we might think about stories of old. Often the Bible gets treated like a history book. And so if it gets treated like that, we have to figure out, well, when did this actually happen and how did this actually happen? And we end up asking all sorts of questions that the stories and the storytellers had no interest in answering. And so we retell them in such a way that we are trying to get back to that experience and that feeling and using some of our creative license some 2,000, 3,000 years later in order to drive home those points. So we started off the series with two super familiar stories, maybe some of the most familiar stories in the entire Bible. We had the very first story, the very first chapter, the very first book of the Bible about the creation story. And then we had this weird, unsettling story about a father who comes within inches of sacrificing his son. Not great. Then last week we went to a story that many of you probably maybe have never even heard before, about the very first Sunday church service where a young person, is literally bored to death. It's awesome. If you haven't heard that story, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to it. And then today we now have a story and a book that is maybe a little bit less familiar, and maybe you have heard about, but even if you've heard about it, you haven't thought about it in a long time. And so today we're going to be in the book of Judges, which is in the Hebrew scriptures, and specifically, again, focusing on this story of Deborah. But before we get into the context of that story, I want to talk about the context of the stories in the book as a whole of Judges. Like many of the stories that we've talked about so far, it's not as if there was a historian, like a 21st century historian, who is recording these events as they're happening and trying to get the most literal facts as close as possible in order to pass on those facts. These stories are written hundreds of years after the events that they are supposedly describing. And they're not written in such a way that we want to make sure we get all of the facts together, but they're delivering a message to people who need it in the time, in the way that they need it. And so the context for the book of Judges is the people of Israel have been forcibly removed from their land, and they're trying to figure out, who on earth are we? Who is this God that we supposedly follow? And what does that mean for us going forward? And so this book in particular is trying to answer that question hundreds of years after the supposed events and say, where did we come from? Who are we now? And what does that mean for us going forward? That's kind of what Judges and many of these other books and other stories are trying to get at. And Judges in particular has an agenda. Judges is one of those stories that it has a solution that's in search of a problem. And the stories that it tells are like trying to describe the problem that they already have the solution to. So the story of Judges is about trying to say, we need a king. Our problem now and our problem then was that we don't have a king. We don't have this big, powerful authority figure that we can follow and can set us on the right track. So throughout the book of Judges, over and over again, it describes the events as, this was a time when there was no king. And everyone did as they saw fit. So that's the solution. So the problem plays out repeatedly throughout the book of Judges in describing, this is what it's like to not have a king. This is how we ended up in this situation. So time and time again, the people of Israel find themselves in a terrible situation. They've gone off track. Their enemies have conquered them, and now they realize they need help. So they reach out to God, and God lifts up this leader, this tribal leader, which is known as a judge. Not like a judge that we have now, but this tribal leader who is able to bring the people back on track, point them back to God, and deliver these military victories so they can have peace and security and can return to faithfulness once again. And then what inevitably happens is that judge dies off. There's not a king, so it's not an easy transition to the next person in the bloodline. And so once again, the people return to their old ways. They get defeated. They cry out to God. Another judge is raised up. You know, it goes over and over again. There's 12 different leaders in the book of Judges, and there's 12 different cycles, and every one of those cycles gets worse and worse and worse. So one of the people, one of the judges that we hear from is this woman named Deborah. So as with all of these other judges, the people of Israel find themselves in this situation where their enemies have come in and taken over. The Canaanites at this time, led by this king named Jabin, come in and they take over. They defeat the people of Israel. Jabin puts his general in charge of them, Sisera, and Sisera is like a slave master who puts them in slavery basically for 20 years. And finally, they reach out to God and say, we need help here. Well, it just so happens that they have this woman named Deborah. Deborah was a prophetess and a professional advice getter. People would come from all around to hear what God was saying through her and to help them to figure out some of their differences. And so Deborah is just sitting here with these gifts and this calling, and she realizes, looking at the situation for the people of Israel, it's time to do something about this. And so what Deborah does is she calls her general Barak to come in, and she's going to tell him, we need to go and finally move against these Canaanites. And if we're paying attention to the story and we say, well, this is a time with no kings, what we need is a big, strong, male leader to come in and defeat our enemies. Barak's the one we've been waiting for. Barak comes to Deborah. He says, we are going to do this thing and you are going to lead the way. And Barak goes, I'll only do it if you come with me. And if you don't come with me, I'm not going to do it. It's the woman who replies, okay, that's fine. Calm down. We will go do this thing together. Because you're being such a coward, you are not going to be the one that gets credit for this. You are not going to be the hero. And the script is completely flipped. What ends up happening is Deborah gets Barak on board, gives him the marching orders. They go and they defeat the Canaanite army. Sisera, the powerful general, escapes. Deborah is smart enough, wise enough to say, just let him run. We'll get to him later. And he ends up and eventually defeated and killed in a pretty gruesome way by another woman. And so in this situation, in this story that is pointing towards we need big, strong male leadership, we have this woman and another woman later who becomes the hero of this story because she has this unique, undeniable gift and calling. And we're sitting back here going, woohoo! One of the problems is that this was a really unique thing culturally. And what we see even in the rest of the book of Judges and the rest of the Hebrew scriptures and even the Christian scriptures is that this is the exception that proves the rule, that most women don't end up being leaders. They are seen as incapable. Maybe even it's inappropriate for them to be leaders. The book of Judges has lots of other women in it, and most of them are treated really, really poorly. But, we can evolve. We can expand things. By the time we get to the Christian scriptures, we believe that God is working uniquely through all of us, and so women will be able to have equal rights, and they'll be able to stand up in leadership as they have the gifts and callings, right? There are letters in the Christian scriptures that speak specifically about women can do, but mostly about what they can't do, including standing up in front of church and using their voices. One of the most disturbing things to me is there's a book in the Christian scriptures called Hebrews, and one of the chapters in that book describes some of the heroes of faith for us to look up to. And in that chapter, where it's talking about the heroes of faith to look up to, they go back to the story of Judges, And they say who you need to look to is the hero named Barak. Deborah is in such a position as a woman, even with her gift and calling, that she's like completely wiped from the story altogether. And so if we're just kind of collecting that as evidence, again, it seems like this story of Deborah is like an outlier, and we need to revert back to the mean. This is an exception that proves the rule that women aren't, shouldn't be, can't be capable leaders. But here's the deal. Exceptions matter. Exceptions create the context for us to say, wait, this is an outlier. This doesn't usually happen, but it can happen. And maybe if it happens once, it can happen once again. It creates the permission structure for us to say, if that one person can do it, maybe that can be true of other people, and maybe even that can be true of me. Maybe if Deborah has this gift and this calling to do great things, there are other women who have this gift and this calling to do great things. And maybe I have a gift and a calling to do great things as well. We talked a few minutes ago about the Olympics. Not that long ago in the history in human history, it was seen as absolutely impossible for someone to run a 4-minute mile. Scientifically impossible. No one would ever be able to run a 4-minute mile. And then in 1954, a man named Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile. Okay, well, there's this one, but that's the exception that proves the rule. The thing is, though, Roger Bannister, just by him doing it, created this the permission structure for other people to say, well, maybe I can do that. No one in human history, in recorded human history, had ever run a 4-minute mile before until Roger Bannister. And then 2 months later, he and one other guy ran a 4-minute mile again. But the next year, 3 people in one race ran a 4-minute mile. Now here we are in the year 2024, and let's see if I get this number right. 1,775 people have run a 4-minute mile. This thing that was illogical, that was outside of our experience, that was said that it could not be done, was done by one person, and it created a permission structure for those who have the gifts and the calling to go out and do something crazy, to go out and do that crazy thing. And so as we think about what that means for the church, for us in society even, the stories that we tell matter, especially when those stories are about outliers and when those stories are about exceptions that prove the rule. So my hope is that if you are in one of those categories of people for whom it does not make sense, it is illogical, it is maybe inappropriate for you to be in a position of power where people say you cannot do this thing, that you are able to lean in like Deborah and say, actually, I have this gift and calling, not just to do this thing, but to do something great and to do it with great love. And if you are not in one of those groups, if you look a little bit something like me perhaps, that you have the vision to be able to say, maybe someone else who does not look like me have the gift and calling to do great things with great love. When people are looking for a king, when they're experiencing all sorts of adversity, maybe what you don't need is a king who has everything planned out for them. Maybe actually what we need is someone who has gone through the adversity in order for us to get through the adversity together. So that is my prayer for us, that we are people of vision, of people who experience the outliers, who see the outliers, who see these stories, retell these stories over and over again, giving ourselves and others the permission structure to say, God has gifted us with great abilities, with great calling, even and especially women, to do what us men cannot, will not perhaps do, because like Barak, we just might be cowards. So may that be so.
Well, if there's something that the Grove knows well, it's women in leadership. I don't know if y'all fully realize, but even though we have a male pastor, most of our staff is female, both here in Cottage Grove and in Woodbury. Most of our operations team here in Cottage Grove is female. Most of our volunteer pool is female. Men, looking at you. With love. But it really, I was thinking about the story of Deborah and realizing, oh my gosh, our church is largely built, supported, and run by women. And in church world, that is really rare. It's a very special thing, and one that I think reflects who we are as a community really well, because I was thinking, generally speaking, women, when they lead well, don't lead by dominion. Their strength lies in what Lily was talking about, and it's like an uplifting and support of one another. And I think that is part of why our community is thriving and growing so well as a church, is because we have so many women and girls and non-binary folks as well who are so good at just supporting and surrounding one another and not trying to be in charge. It's a really beautiful way women lead. So I don't know if you noticed, but all of the music today that was chosen was by women, artists and songwriters. And when I was thinking of songs that are by women, I was thinking of the song that we know and love well, and we've been doing it for a few years now, a song called Crowded Table by the Highwomen, which just embodies who we are so well. And I thought, how fun would it be to have as many women and girls as possible today come up and lead us in that song together. So we already have some people that are planning on coming up and singing with us. If you're like, oh, I know that song and I want to come up there and sing along too, just come on. We're all going to gather up here. Come on, girls. Let's go, girls. But y'all can rise and sing this along with us, okay? Sing with us, or stand with us, even if you don't know it. All right. What's up, Harvest? Harvest is brand new, and she's singing, hey, girl. We ready? You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be your mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be a street light showing you the way home. If you can hold my hand when you need to let go. And I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. And I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Yes, everyone belongs. And I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done. Oh, y'all stay here, stay here. Come back. We'll sing it one more time. But thank y'all for being with us today. It's great to have you. And before you go, I was thinking of back on Pride Sunday in June, we had a speaker named Jay Bates come, and he was talking about being what you imagine, and thinking of like how we're here at a largely female-led church, a church where queer people are fully included and supported, things like that. And that was something that somebody one day, it didn't exist before, and then it was imagined, and now it exists. So I want to say to you all and leave you with this idea of go be the person that you imagine you need in the future, or that you imagine somebody else needs in the future, and then it will be so. All right. Go grow goodness. Thanks for being with us today. And let's sing that chorus one more time. All right. And I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. Good job. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for singing. Thank you for singing. You're released.